Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. R&B artist Kevin Ross comes home to Bethesda Theater in Bethesda, Maryland tomorrow night. He joined me to discuss growing up in D.C. before meeting Jamie Foxx and charting numerous hits on the R&B charts. Hey, Kevin Ross. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP in your hometown of Washington, D.C.
Thank you for having me, man.
We're talking because you're coming to the Bethesda Theater. It used to be Bethesda Blues and Jazz. I think they recently renamed it to just Bethesda Theater. This Friday, November 3rd, right there on Wisconsin Avenue in Bethesda. Hey, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure. I'm super excited about being back home on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we said you were born in D.C. Where exactly about? So what part of the city?
Southeast. I was born in Greater Southeast Hospital. I don't even think that hospital exists anymore, but yeah, that's where I was born.
That's all right. That's all right. And then I always love to drop, if you want to drop, like, what schools you went to or whatever, stuff like that, like, because other people listening to the station, know it well around here.
Well, as far as high school, I went to Ellington School of the Arts in Northwest. So, it's just kind of, one of those things where, for those who've seen me around, as far as riding the metro, whether it was the bus or the train, I was just this very unassuming kid. So it was never, a thing where people would look at me and be like, "Oh my gosh, he's a star," But it was a blessing in disguise of, being from the inner city and being able to move around and really taking as much information as I possibly could about, the city that I'm from, the entrepreneurial spirit, the swag, just the whole entire vibe that comes with, being from Washington, D.C. and without, having any parts of it and just kind of being a witness to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And how much did Duke Ellington School of the Arts influence you, and how much do you think it was, the musicians in your family? I'm sure it was a combination of both.
It was like Ellington was like a training ground, to be honest. Honestly, I feel like we worked harder than I feel like every high school student in America, because it was like we had, of course, academia in a sense of from 8 to 4, something like that. I don't remember the particular times, but pretty much all day. And then we got into after school, and so that's when like the real arts kicked in. We would have arts classes in the afternoon, but like the real arts, part of it, when you're putting on a show or you're preparing for for something, for some presentation or some competition that you had, that was after school. So that was from like 4 to 9 or 4 to 10. So right. Just imagine
around the
getting
clock.
up early. Yeah, around the clock. So by the time that I got to college, and all of the other freshmen was like, "Oh my gosh, oh my schedule is so intense, this and that." And I was like, "What? This is nothing." I was like, once I'm done with class, I'm like, I get to do I get to do homework, and then I get to chill. Like, there is no extracurricular unless I put it on. And, for high school to have that level of intensity, what was there, was like the comparison of if I was playing a sport and being on varsity, for 4 years straight,
Right.
So the intensity and the competitiveness really gave me an edge up that I wouldn't realize until much later on, in a sense, to say, okay, like nobody's willing to do the work that I'm willing to do. And, that's what's going to separate me from the rest.
I love hearing you say that. It's so true. Anyone listening to this, really the secret to life is just outworking the competition. I know there's a certain level of, I'm sure Kevin Ross, you were born with a certain level of talent, etc. But you put in this 10,000 hours, at a young age, starting at Duke Ellington, and then we'll tell everyone you went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and the workload seemed almost lighter there, like you said. That's great. Hey, remind me, didn't I read somewhere that while you were in college, it was around that same time you were on BET's 106 & Park, some sort of competition?
Yeah, that's correct. BET 106 & Park had a segment called Wild Out Wednesday. And I want to say for the first 2 years of college, because I went to college when I was 17. I just turned 17. And so I think that the age was 18, so it was kind of like a weird space of I kind of caught Wild Out Wednesday either right at the end of my sophomore year or right at the junior year. Um, but I remember actually going to New York and auditioning, and I felt out of place because I was like, here I am, coming from this prestigious, jazz school, to audition for this very like hip hop R&B based competition. And even though that was still kind of my field and my love and my passion, I was a complete student and immersed in the craft of being better. And so I was like, I don't know if this BET 106 apart, at the time I'm 18, 19 years old. I'm like, at that time, I'm like, this feels very lowbrow to me. And, I don't know if I should do it, but it was one of the best things that I could have did in the sense of, getting that visibility and then also kind of proving to myself that there was a lane for me and that people could appreciate it. And if I would have kind of stayed in the bubble of just being a student and being at Berklee and just, all of that, I wouldn't have been exposed to, future mentors that I would have in my life. So I owe a lot to BET 106 and Park in that segment. Just what would be the changing factors in my trajectory.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, and your trajectory continued. I'm gonna keep moving chronologically if that's okay, and we'll get to your
Yeah.
new stuff in the Bethesda. We'll end with the Bethesda Theater. We'll see. That's just how this is working out. But
Yeah.
chronologically. So you from there you moved to Atlanta, right? And you start writing some songs. Is that where Trey Songz and Jamie Foxx? Is that where you start writing for them down there?
Yes, not as fast as you said it, but yes.
Just like that,
it,
overnight.
so I met Jamie first. I met Jamie like a year into being in Atlanta. And so I wrote some songs and I thought that, that he didn't like them or that he would never hear them because, they were going through, a third party. And so I get a call one day randomly like, hey, Jamie wants you to come to LA because he loves the songs that you did and he wants to cut them tonight. And I was like, okay. Granted, I'm 20, 21 years old, so I'm like, I ain't got nothing else to do. So all right, let me just, put my, put my clothes in a little bag and I'm off to LA. And so when I get to Jamie's house, I mean, of course, which is beautiful, we head straight to the back of the house and into a pool house area, I mean, which is bigger than most normal suburban houses. But I get in there and the first thing that I see is like this whole like buffet style of Cheesecake Factory. So I'm like, okay, like, it must have been a party or, he's about to throw a party because it's a lot of food, right? And so, I keep walking in. And so I meet with the producer who actually produced the song. So, we're just kind of going over parts, just making sure that the session is all cleaned up for Jamie. We're playing it. And then all of a sudden, Jamie comes in and he's dancing, he's singing a song. And so I'm like, oh my God, like this is, of course, I'm trying to keep cool because I'm in his house and I ain't trying to like be too much of a fan. But I'm like, yo, this is Jamie Foxx.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
the most versatile
singing.
singer, actor, everything, that's a comedian that's around.
Absolutely. Definitely one of the best Renaissance men to ever do it.
Yep.
And so, with that being said, it's like, oh man. So one thing that I noticed about Jamie is that when he's taking in information, like you can tell because like everything he looks pretty much he looks dead. He looks like stoic. And so, at first, as the session was going along, he would talk, and then something would like interest him on television. He would look, and we would still be talking and laughing, and it was like nothing else existed but this information that he was taking in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes he would like regurgitate, an impersonation of what he just heard. It's just like, yo, like this is different. Like I never have been around someone with that insane level of devotion to like
Yeah.
taking in information, you
Yeah.
know? And
Genius.
so,
Genius.
I mean, yeah, absolute genius in every sense of the word. And of course, going back to the cheesecake part of it. So he's like, "You guys hungry?" So I'm like, "Yeah, you know." And so he was like, "You know, well, the cheesecake stuff is for you." And so I'm like, "Well, it's just us two." He's like, "Yeah, I know." He was like, "You know, it's about variety. I didn't know what you guys like, so I just ordered the whole menu." I said, "I'm sorry, what?" So come again? The whole menu? He's like, "Yeah." You know, it's like, because I never met you. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, well, this is a whole nother level of balling that that I still remember, obviously, until this day. But it was such a great experience for sure.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. I didn't know we were going to get that great of a Jamie Foxx story. That's amazing insight. Thanks so much. All right. Then of course, then you sign, I guess, with Motown, and this is when your records start coming out. All right. So we dished on Jamie long enough. Now we're going to get into Kevin Ross's, his own genius, if you will. All
Yeah,
right. So
yeah.
that first EP, Dialogue in the Gray, drops in 2014. I guess it's like a 4-track thing. One of them was "This Is My Wish," and I get, gosh, what else was there? I guess there was some Neo and Ti were on some of that stuff. You start
Mm-hmm.
touring with Maxwell and Neo. So like this is when you're really breaking through. I think AOL named you best new artist in 2014. Good old AOL. Anyway, so but the welcome. You've got songs. All right. So yeah, just memories of putting together that first one and working with Neo, Ti, all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, during that time of Dialogue in the Gray, I mean, I was truly living that. Uh, but more so, Monologue in the Gray, more than anything, because of the fact that I was just having so many conversations with myself
Ah,
about, is this something that I'm meant to do? I graduated, 4 years prior. And so I'm like, okay, well, I got a couple of placements and that's barely paying the bills. And so I'm like, I've been signed for maybe a year or two. And when I say a year or two, I say it, in a sense of course, within talking is very passive. But when you think about 365 days of anything, it's a long time.
yeah.
And so it felt I felt every bit of that time. And so you know when that occurred, it was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, you don't know if it's going to go away tomorrow. You don't know what's happening next. You're just really trying to focus on living in the moment. To go on tour with Maxwell was such a random experience, but it was the greatest thing that I could have done
Yeah.
because it was a training ground for me. It was like, all right, well, here I go from performing maybe once every 6 months to performing 6 nights a week. And so, it really showed me how serious I had to be. If I wasn't serious before, you know what I mean? Like it really showed me like, okay, like, hey dude, if you really want this is what you have to do, in a sense of, there is no partying, there is no drinking, there is no,
Mhm.
girls after the show, because we gotta hop in our church van and get to the next city. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? We gotta chase after Maxwell's 3 tour buses. You know
Right.
what I mean? and sleep in one hotel room, head to foot, one on the floor, and maybe another one in the van. And so that was our life for a couple of months. But to me, what I learned from that was my love and passion for people, and the message that I had to give. Everybody deserved a good show, no matter what city I was in. So I couldn't slack. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to Oklahoma City. I can slack off. It was like, no, like no one's ever seen me
Right.
in any of these cities. So this experience is going to be brand new. And I'm so glad that, God kind of allowed for that to click in my mind, because people still, when I revisit those cities, people still remember the first time that they met me. They're like, oh my gosh, I remember when you were on the Maxwell tour and this, and that. And I was like, that's the reason. That's the reason why, for no, other point than to say, hey, you're making memories with these people and for these people. And so, that was really important on the Maxwell tour and the Neo tour to have a Glade commercial. That was kind of like a stamp, in my book as it pertains to my career to say you've reached a new level. And
Absolutely. And that's smart that you looked at it that way, because you really only do get one first impression. So, and it
yes,
sounds like you made a good one all over the country.
yes, 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 indeed, yes, indeed. But yeah, that was a really cool time. It was, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot during that time frame.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it. All right, and then of course from there we go to the second EP, Long Song Away in 2016, and also I guess that also the song Long Song Away, it also appears on your first full length album, The Awakening, in 2017. So the song this your career is like you're saying, you're leveling up now, because Long Song Away, I guess, is your first number one on the Billboard R&B songs chart. So now you're charting. I guess Don't Go is also on The Awakening. You got BJ Chicago Kid, Babyface working with on The Awakening. Like, now take me is this like take me into the second phase, that the Long Song Away EP and now The Awakening first full length LP. Take me, how have you evolved to this point?
So, keep in mind that Dialogue on the Grave was in 2014, so I wouldn't reappear until 2016. So that's another 2 years
Right.
of, just back and forth and being in the studio and is it good enough, and just too many chefs in the kitchen, to be honest. And so, by the time that 2016 came, Long Song Away and The Awakening, I was just glad to have music out again. And so, just a moment of gratitude and just staying focused and saying, okay, well, how can I keep this going? And, of course, the first single that we sent to radio, it going number one, was super humbling. And it was a grind in the sense of going city to city and doing these shows and these little lounge spots and singing the songs and just really trying to connect with the people. And so The Awakening literally was a true awakening for me as it pertains to the value of self, which will kind of be a revolving theme throughout the rest of my life. But yeah, the value of self-worth and understanding that, hey, just because an opportunity is presented doesn't mean that it's the right opportunity. And so I felt like I was in the right place at the right time. But then you can hit a season where it no longer serves you, and that not only that it no longer serves you, that you know the time is completely up on it. And so I seen the writing on the wall as it pertains to, after a number one hit and nominations from Soul Train and MAACP and iHeart Music and all of these other, nominations that I would collect during that short period of time between Long Song Away and The Awakening. I decided that I wanted to ask for my release. And it wasn't because of the fact that it was like, oh, I'm hot and, I want to go somewhere else. It was just more so the fact that, the person that brought me into, the building as it pertains to Motown, they left. And when they left without me even knowing, and so I was like, okay, that's weird. And so I was like, that's not a good sign. And I'm a student at this, so I had read enough horror stories about, when your champion, when your A&R leaves the building, then there's a big shift and big change that's going to happen, and you're not going to be a priority anymore. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and get up off here. And so, at the end of 2017, after that, amazing run, yet brief run, I decided to, you know, go my own way and start my own company, Art Society Music Group. And they wouldn't let me go probably until 2 years after that.
Wow. But I just want to clarify. So the third EP you did, Drive, that was still with Motown, and then you pivoted and started your own label
It,
for the other
it,
EPs, for Audacity Volume 1 and 2, right? That's the order of
it,
it, right?
it, exactly.
Okay.
Drive came right before that decision. And I guess, yeah, just to touch up on it, Drive felt very freeing to me because it was my first time doing stuff that I wanted to do in the sense of, sequencing everything in the way that I wanted it to be sequenced, and, picking the songs without anybody, interfering with it. And I felt like to that point, it was, the most cohesive project that I did. Of course, there's only 3 projects during that time,
Right.
but I took pride in that. And it also, of course, with every title, it kind of reflects on where I am in my life. So it wasn't just like, hey, this record is good for when you're out for a drive, but it was like, I'm driven, I'm hungry, and then
Mm.
I had so much music. I had so much music in me that was finally starting to come out, that I was in the process. I was like in the middle of Audacity by the time that I finished Drive. So
Right.
I was already in the makings of the next project, and I was like, okay, I'm ready for this. Like, we are off to the races. Let's go. We're gonna have a new project out next year, yada yada yada. And the guy was just kind of like, no, that's not what's gonna happen. You need to leave. You need to, you know, go away. And so yeah, we ended with Drive, and that was that.
Yeah, and well, it sounds like God was right, because God is quote a genius in your song. uh,
Absolutely, no question.
So yeah, that song, and then Thing Called Love, like they were both on, on your 2 Audacity EPs. And then I guess take me as that brings us all the way up to your second full length album, Drive 2. You Still Hungry, and thanks for explaining that is a double meaning. Not only good to drive in the song, but it's that Eye of the Tiger Drive too. So 2021 Drive 2 comes out. Looking for Love is on there. I think that cracks the top 10 of the adult R&B charts. So
Yes.
you're back charting again. Was that like a pandemic record, or how did that whole Drive 2 come about?
Yeah, Drive Two was definitely a pandemic record. It was one of those things that, like, I had learned so much from Audacity. That was my first release as an independent artist. So sonically, I was like everywhere, and on purpose. I wanted to create literally as wide of a spectrum as I possibly could, because no one heard anything for the past 2 years. So I didn't know what they liked, what they wanted from this current Kevin Ross.
Right.
So I was like, okay, do you want more pop stuff? Do you want more slow stuff? Do you want something more soulful? You want it to be more, down the middle? And so, after I kind of collected all of that information, I was like, all right, well, it makes it easy to create Drive 2, because I knew that I was like, okay, I could be musical, but I could still, lyrically say things that are fly, um, and just really make a very potent piece of work. And once I had Looking for Love and Sweet Release, I knew that I was making that project. I knew that Drive 2 was the theme, and that I was like off to the races. And so Drive 2 is definitely still one of my pride and joys, in the sense of, how it's been streaming, in the sense of, like, even for, for those who are just discovering me, and they always look to Drive 2 to be that, you know, project that has consistent songs. I feel like even when I listen to it today, um, it's maybe one song out of 9 that I was like, I could skip over. But other than that, it's a very cohesive project with really strong songs on it. So I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely. And then what? So that was 2021. We're 2023. When we come to the Bethesda Theater, is Drive 2 pretty much like the newest one that you're playing from, or is there new stuff are you working on anything else coming up that we're gonna hear?
So there's a project that I had out, or that I have out, called Midnight Microdose, Volume 1 and Volume 2, that was released in May of 2023, and also what is it, September of 2023 as well, with Volume 2. We had a song called Look My Way, which cracked the top 10 on Billboard R&B as well. So that would be my third top 10 at R&B radio in the past 2 years.
Nice.
And so yeah, Midnight Microdose is another pride and joy, just as far as the maturity of my artistry, of lyricism, of being very concise with my delivery of music. And so I'm super proud of it. And so yeah, Midnight Microdose is where we are right now. Um, but as far as for Friday, I will say this for those who have their tickets, because I will say that Bethesda Theater is sold out.
Mm.
So for those who have their tickets, this will be a celebration of Drive 2 being out for 2 years. October
Uh,
29th, yesterday, marked 2 years of Drive 2. So I'm paying tribute and homage to the tour that never happened. And so DC, my hometown, gets the only show that will ever happen pertaining to Drive 2.
oh, you mean because of COVID? You didn't ever it came out, but you never got to tour it. So now we're finally catching up and bringing the songs live to the people.
Exactly. And then some. And
And
then
then
some for
some, yeah,
sure.
of course. Yeah, of course. Hey, before we run, I mean, I wanted to remind people not only all of the cool songs that you've, recorded yourself, but like I mentioned earlier in the interview that you wrote songs for Trey Songz and Jamie Foxx, but I gotta tell people like you've written for Nicki Minaj and Tony Braxton and SWV and Johnny Gill, and I think did you even do something with Kevin Hart one time? like
Yeah.
the list goes on and on and on. So do you ever work in any of their songs in your show, or do you mostly just stick to the ones that you wrote for that the Kevin Ross recorded?
Yeah, the ones that Kevin Ross recorded for the most part.
Yeah. You don't do
I
a Tony
think that
Braxton cover.
no.
Yeah.
I always, there's a time and a place for it, and I think that maybe later on down the road, maybe 10 years from now, so I'll have enough catalog, that I can call upon and say, oh, remember when I wrote this?
Right.
I think that as of right now, I'm still, I'm still collecting those songs, and so I'm grateful that I can come back home and I can sell out Bethesda Theater in the way that we did. So I'm super honored. I'm super excited to be around family, friends, those who maybe are experiencing me for the first time. I think the Bethesda Theater holds 500 plus seats, and so it's not nothing to sneeze at. I remember being in starting with open mics over on U Street or Adams Morgan to the Songbird, for those who may know what the Songbird is,
Yeah.
to City Winery or what used to be City Winery,
Yeah.
um, to the Birchmere over in Arlington, Virginia, to now Bethesda Theater. So it shows the progression and growth and the ability to scale as an artist, and to know that okay, if I can do this, then there are bigger venues in my future. And so I'm so excited that we get to celebrate this moment, right here, right now. So this will be a great celebration, and we've been working really hard. So this is gonna be a really good show.
Oh, it's gonna be a great show. Again, it's gonna be at Bethesda Theater Friday, November 3rd. Thanks so much. You've been so generous with your time. I mean, final seconds, I have to ask, whenever there's like a DC, someone that grew up around here, like are you, I assume, or I guess you're a local, you're a fan of all the local teams, right? Like you're a DC football, Commanders, Nats, Caps, Wizards, all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. By default. You know what I
By
mean?
default. Well, I was asking because the our football team, we just traded Chase Young and Montez Sweat today. I don't know how close you follow. They're our two big edge rushers, our defensive ends, and they're cleaning house. The new ownership's coming in and cleaning house. But thankfully Dan Snyder is gone. So I didn't know if you were like a huge fan or what. If you wanted to, or if you were more focused on the arts. But anyway.
I'm definitely more focused on the arts. However, my dad is really big on the Commanders and all that stuff. So I definitely live vicariously through him as it pertains to his fanatic vibe of sports. And so yeah, I'd say this about the Commanders, and what I do know is that you know every team has its time, and so I'm so glad that we get the chance to rebuild. You know what I mean, here. And so I'm excited to see what happens with the Commanders' future. You know what I mean? I feel like we're a ways away as it pertains to the reconstruction of it. But like you said, just the fact that we're able to clean house and start with a clean slate are all good signs.
Hey, I mean, we both grew up around here. I'm from Frederick, Maryland, a little further north than you. You were actually born in the city, but man, speaking of reconstruct, I want them to reconstruct a new stadium down right where RFK used to be, because that's, you know, when you and I were
Oh
growing up,
man,
that was where they played. You know,
yep,
the glory
absolutely,
days.
man.
That feels like forever ago now, but
No, I mean, and you're absolutely right. And it's so crazy. I was just thinking about RFK Stadium and Stadium Armory and all of those places that were near there. It was such a lively area, and so just to see it, you know, just gone.
yeah. Well, they
It's
still
very
do like
very
Broccoli
interesting.
City. They do the Black Broccoli City Fest. They do like stuff in like, you know, the parking lot and the stadium grounds. But the stadium itself, as you know,
Yeah,
it's on its
yeah,
last legs.
it's,
That thing's falling down.
yeah, and that's the thing. Of course, like you said, of course, Broccoli City, but it's that energy is still different. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I remember as a kid and going to games, and there'd be little kids and teenagers like literally playing go-go on buckets. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like just the spirit of it, and what I would know in the future as tailgating. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like just that spirit. You know what I mean? I don't think any festival or anything on the parking grounds can really capture that. And so yeah, I definitely miss that for sure.
Yeah. Well, maybe it'll come back one day. Wait, where are you calling us from? Are you still around here, or do you live elsewhere and you're just coming back to our area?
I live elsewhere. However, I'm in kind of sort of driving distance, but I
Okay.
should be technically taking the train.
All
But
right.
I literally have rehearsal in where was that at? I think somewhere, not Capitol Heights, Maryland, but like somewhere in that area, and I drove, and so
Okay.
I'm going back home, which is quite a bit of a trek. But yeah, it's an honor to really re-link up with local amazing musicians and singers, and to put on the show for the city. So yeah, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, well, welcome back. We're excited to have you coming back to the area. Again, everyone, Kevin Ross is going to be at Bethesda Theater in Bethesda, Maryland this Friday, November 3rd. Hey, thank you so much for taking so much time with us. We did a whole chronological, journey through your life and career. So there you go.
Absolutely, man. I'm honored. Thank you once again.
All right. Be well. See ya.
Yes.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.